This reading mainly focused on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as well as the following implications. One thing that was going on at the same time was the summer project in the South that mainly focused on voter registration, as well as freedom schools that helped African American children catch up on their education. Anyway, so back to the Civil Rights Act. To me, it seems like a big band-aid of quote-unquote integration policies to cover up the huge wound of institutionalized racism that existed in the society. Although integration in public places was now the law, really, in practice, it didn't really work out that way. A lot of places stayed segregated, and some of the places that were integrated were almost resegregated out of fear of what the Ku Klux Klan members might do, as well as the rest of society. Martin Luther King implored the Republican Party to actually do something and enforce the Civil Rights Act. He thought it was ironic that 100 years ago, the same Republican Party had Abraham Lincoln emancipate the slaves, and 100 years later, they are doing nothing to help the freed African Americans. At the same time, there were also a lot of murders going on, but a lack of thorough investigation by the FBI and any kind of national intervention. So, for example, this is best epitomized by the FBI office in Mississippi that was completely decked out with fake walls and dummy records instead of having a real functioning office with real functioning officers. Martin Luther King was torn. He was persuaded by one side, the Freedom Party people, who really wanted to push for actual enforcement of the Civil Rights Act and more integration, but he was also trying to push them to no longer have public demonstrations so that he could have Johnson's support. Johnson, on the other hand, wanted him to keep the Freedom Party under control, but then also refused to give him the meeting times or agreements or any kind of compromise. He instead spent more of his time focusing on throwing money at the war on poverty. And by that I mean throwing 50 times as much money on the war in Vietnam compared to the war on poverty. The overall impact of the Freedom Summers project resulted in a lot of arrests and a lot of beatings and a negligible increase in voter registration. What was important, though, was that they had their foot in the door against racism and the beginning to equal citizenship rights in Mississippi, and it was that start that was important.